Hey guys, BBI here. I want to stop and say thanks for tuning in and checking out whatever the video is about that's about ready to come up next. If you could take a minute and hit subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you enjoy what you've seen here, make sure to hit the like button. We'd greatly appreciate your support. Anyhow, guys, all that aside, let's get on with the show. Well, if you haven't figured it out, by the title alone, it kind of gives up the whole moral and the story of the video. Today, we're going to talk about my new Workbench D-rail 955 radio. Now, there's a group of you that are out there going, but, BBI, we've already seen this video. Wrong. And yes. Up here is my Workbench 955. It never moves. This is not the 955 you guys seen the last video on. The 955 you guys saw the last video on, when I got it from D-rail, he put a bunch of extras in it that I told him he really didn't need to do. And the extras were like hi-fi receive, hi-fi transmit. You know, it had every bell and whistle in it that he made at the time. Variable bass, variable treble, variable bird, variable peak. And I thought, man, I had this trip that I took to California a couple months ago. You guys know the one that I went and I took where I did all the interviews. I couldn't help myself. I pulled my Workbench apart and I pulled that radio that was up there out and I put it in my Suburban. And I took it with me on the road trip. Now before that, I got really used to having that radio, and it's got some flexibility to it that we're going to cover in this video. I really dig the flexibility, but I wanted to have a really good sounding radio for the road. It worked phenomenally, as in like everybody's, oh my God, the thing sounds so good. I can't believe it. What the hell, you sound like a hi-fi transmitter rolling down the road. And it wasn't just the radio, I got audio processing in the rig and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I was talking my ass off. Well, I came home and I went, you know what? I ain't taking it out. So the radio I've got up here now is one that I got from my friend that just passed away, Mr. Black. He ran that radio in Afghanistan. He sent it to me many, many, many years ago. Well, I needed to have a radio up there to do tests on the old healing bench. Now, where my power source is way down over here underneath the Workbench. So this mess of wires that goes up the side of the Workbench over here is the coax and the power wires that power everything down here. Well, they're up there. Well, all of those radios are fed with 8-gauge wire. So down here below the Workbench, I got a big copper plate where all the batteries and the capacitors and the power supplies all sum together on this. Oh, I'm not kidding, like big copper plate like this, positive and negative. And out of the center of that plate, I've got this 4-aught black and red welding lead that come off of it, and they come up to these terminals on the bench. Well, also off that plate, I've got all of the radios summed together on a couple different eyelets down there. So there's very little current loss, but I have on my Workbench just so I can like hook up my buddy's radio. Like if I have a friend of mine call me up, man, my radio's all messed up. Can you look at it real quick? Sure, come on over. I can get it done. This is the power wire that normally comes with your Striker, 955, 655, so on. I have done a fuse delete on it. I don't suggest you do this. This is just simply me and my thing. This is absolutely not the way you want to do it. The point is, I'm going to run this radio with this puny little power wire feeding it, and then we're going to jump over to this wire. Okay? This is 8-gauge silicone, high temp, low resistance, stupid high strand count power wire. let it focus. It will figure it out. You can obviously see the strand size difference between the two wires. This has got about 1.5 billion strands in it, this wire here. And what this is really high-end wire, where my buddy Zane at Big Rig Radio has chopped off the end of the eyelet here, has soldered the wires together, so we're increasing the amount of current and voltage that can be carried to the plug and minimizing the distance of this small stranded wire. So we're going to keep that in mind, and we're going to see the performance difference between the two. Okay. So let's move this thing to the side. And by the way, those are for sale. He sells these. They're like $25 a piece, and they're worth every penny. And he can make them to custom length if you want. I'll put his number in here, like somewhere right in here. And I'm also going to put Wolfman's number somewhere right in here. And I say Wolfman as in Wolfman CB because that's where D-rail and his brother work, because they own this business. A 50-year-old or 45-year-old business. It didn't start yesterday. He's been around radio since he was about 2 weeks old. I was going to say 2 years, but since his dad owned the CB shop since before he was born, I'd have to say probably as soon as he got home from the hospital. Okay, so this is my brand new D-rail radio. The features that I like the most about it on having it on the workbench are these two knobs. This is variable bird and this is variable peak. I'm going to show you why that's so important here in just a minute. We're going to be running at 15 volts flat today. So let's see what the meter on the front of the 955 says. 15 volts on the button. Okay. Let's zoom on in here. 15 volts on the button. Now let's go over here and take a look at our units of measure. Now I got to strongly fight the urge not to say 1,000 watt slug because I'm so used to saying 1,000, but this is a 100 watt slug in peak, 100 in average, and a 5 watt bird back from the bird 10,000 watt dummy load. Now what we got here is the variable, peak, and bird all the way up. We're going to start with our variable power also all the way up, and we've got our talk back down and our mic gain at 100%. The reason that's important to document where the mic gain is at is because my friend D-rail sets the mic gain a little hot, as in like you can make the radio distort, but this isn't the beginner radio. This isn't your average radio. He expects the guy that buys a radio from him to understand the basic fundamentals of what they actually need. Okay. He will set the radio up any way you want, but he's always going to give you a little extra because I don't know about you. I like Ranger mics, but there's guys out there that like a static mics. There's guys out there that like lollipops. There's guys out. They all have different impedances, different amount of signal that they put out of them, so it changes how it affects the front end or the output of the radio. Now, if your friends are telling you you're too loud, guess what? You've got this knob right here. You can turn it down, and then it's not a big giant overmodulated splitter box. The control is up to you. Okay? How you set and control the radio is up to you. And at some point or another, adulting has to kick in, and people have to take responsibility for themselves. Like, there is a debate that goes on that I've heard in multiple different places. Man, truck stop radio, blah, blah, blah. It sounds like ass. Well, you can set the radio up to be spectrally pure by controlling your mic gain, because all the limiters are still in this radio. They're all in there. None of the coils have been spread. None of that malarkey's happened here. He's upgraded the finals. He's fine-tuned the output section by changing capacitors, changing a whole bunch of stuff, and then he's smoothed out the audio section through thousands of hours worth of research and making the audio section just perfect on this. This radio is strictly for the bench. It does not have hi-fi receive, does not have hi-fi transmit in the audio. It just doesn't. This is pretty much a straightforward, just upgraded finals, upgraded power supply section in it for what we need to do with it, and variable bird, variable peak. 'Cause that's all I need. It's never going to come off the bench. It's never going to go on the air. Never. Is it ever? Never is it going to go on the air. But like I was saying, at some point, you can't blame the technician. You have to go and point the finger back at the operator. That's you guys. You can have your technician set you, I want to use this microphone, and I'm going to set the dead key at this level, and I'm going to operate it with this box, and I'm going to do this exact thing, and I'm never going to change it. Your technician can set up and work within those parameters. Now, how many people actually live in that world where they operate everything exactly the way it was given to them? Zero. That's right. So you can have a radio that sounds absolutely like God if the mic gain's at half. But the operator gets it and goes, yeah, but it swings so much more if I turn it all the way to here. And you sound like crap. That's not a reflection on the technician. That's a reflection on the operator. And at some point or another, somebody has to take responsibility for that. So when I hear other technicians out there dogging on another technician, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that D-rail's done that or anybody else has done it. I'm just saying when I hear another technician dug on another technician because, oh, I talked to that guy on the radio and he's got himself one of them new high-fadangled radios and now he sounds like shit. 99% of the time, it's not the technician's fault. It's usually the operator's fault because he's got something in the gain chain, like he decides he's going to do something silly, like he's going to get 14 different echo modulation toys and he's going to plug it in line and overdrive everything. Well, how's the technician going to do? How the technician going to compensate to that? That never gets told to the technician. But the tech always gets blamed. I'm getting this out of my system because when I was on my last road trip, I listened to this one guy completely rag on and tack down another technician. He wasn't talking to me. He's talking to another dude that was driving in front of me. And he was trying to like upsell him to come in and get his radio worked on. It was the weirdest sales pitch I've ever heard in my life. But then it dawned on me. If he goes in and turns the gains all the way down and makes the guy sound great because his he's got whatever microphone that might be a little bit more sensitive than this one, let's say. His sales pitch is see, you sound better now. When really all the guy that was the main operator of the radio needed to do was this. But nobody's bothered to tell him to turn the mic gain down. It's just food for thought. It's food for thought. You're going to see this radio in a lot of different videos where we're going to sit over here and we're going to show it. Here's the radio, here's the amp. Okay, that's going to happen. So we're not going to spend a lot of time looking at the spectrum analyzer today. What's the point? You're going to see it a lot anyhow. I'm just going to show you the basic parameters, so when I say, okay, let's go to the D-rail bench radio, you guys are going to know what I'm talking about. Make sense? Okay. So, sorry about that. Phone rang. So, while I was on the phone, I was totally farting around with this radio. I like it. We did change one thing. Instead of this being a 100 watt slug, it's now 50 watt, and it's in average mode. Okay? So, first off, let's go over here and let's look at our maximum carrier level. Okay? So we've got our variable power on the front of the radio. Now we got our peak and our average all the way turned up, and it might gain all the way up. And it's showing us about a 20 watt carrier. So over here, we're reading the bottom scale, and over here, we're reading the top scale. And then over here is a 5 watt slugging forward. Let's go ahead and we'll turn this down. It's going to nice and slowly start moving down. There's 10 watt and 10 watt. The 2 meters agree. So we'll come on down. There's a 5 watt carrier, 4.5 watt carrier, 5 watt carrier. All meters agree. We'll bring it on down. Now, that's at 1 watt. I'll show you what I'm doing. That way nobody thinks there's any kind of sleight of hand going on here. 1 watt. This is at 15 volts. And please keep in mind, just keying it up, we're dropping to 14.6. Remember, we're on the stock provided wire for the moment. So there's our 1 watt at 15 volts all the way down. 2 watts, 5 watts, 10 watts, and our max at 20, which is way high. in my opinion. So let's run this on down. We'll set our dead key down here at about 5 watts, give or take. Okay. Let's turn that back around and reflect. This is what it does and what it is designed to do. Hello, audio. Okay. Let's zoom on in here now that we've all watched that work. And by the way, let's keep an eye on this meter here real quick. Hello. 15 volts to 13.7. I guarantee you my bench power supply is not dragging that much. It's all the power wires. Remember, 100 watt in peak, 50 watt in average. Hello. We're making 40 bird. Now check this out. Hello. Notice the peak numbers didn't change. So what I'm doing over here is I'm dialing down this bottom knob. Hello. Let's go ahead and we'll turn it up. Hello. And up we go again. Making about 35 to 38 bird and right at about 100 watts peak. Hello. So now we're going to grab this top knob. Hello. And we've dialed the peak down. But notice our base carrier has not changed. Let me re-demonstrate that again. Here's our base carrier. Hello. Swinging forward about 15 watts. Now I can also, hello, from here, neuter the radio even more if needed. Hello. We can turn our bird average all the way down. Hello. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now let's turn our peak watts back up. Hello. Got our peak power back, but our average is back down. But our base carrier stays exactly the same. This is why I love this radio so much for on the workbench. Let's say, for instance, this is the king of flexibility. Okay, by being able to adjust my peak power and my average power, and then my carrier level, my base carrier level, without futzing around with the mic gain knob, it makes it so nice on the workbench. Because now I can make this radio, one radio, do this radio's job, this radio's job, this one here, this radio's job, this radio's job, and this radio's job. On the fly, I can take and say, oh, okay, I got a 2x4 on the bench. Well, if you are a crafty guy and you are attention driven, you can change the knobs on this thing so that the radio dead key is 1 watt and it modulates to 30 peak, period. And you can adjust your average number to wherever you need it to be for testing. You could also make it work for you at home. Now, I strongly suggest that you don't do this. Let me explain to you why. It works good for me because I got all these meters set up and I know what they all mean. If you take this and dump this into a 2x4 and any of these knobs get touched, you're going to blow the 2x4 up, permanently damaging your equipment. But for me, on the test bench here, I can manipulate this radio to make it work any way I need it to. That's the beauty of this radio. That's why I didn't need the hi-fi mod, the receive transmit, the super duper audio, all this variable bass, treble, VFO slide, line level pluggable in gate system in the back, and all. I don't need any of that. I need a variable carrier, dead key, variable peak, and variable bird. Everybody goes, well, that bird meter, Look, I've proven it over and over and over and over again on radio, on video. The bird number is a variable. The peak number is universally the same. Period. This is the most superior form of measurement because we have radios that allow us to do this kind of silly stuff. I mean, straight up. Hello, audio. Hello, audio 1111. Hello. If you take 40 watts of average power and drive it into a 4-pill versus 10 or 15 watts of average power, what do you think that average meter is going to do? It's going to run to the corner, or it's going to be very anemic. Meanwhile, the peak numbers stay exactly the same. So I'm not too big of a proponent of people saying, well, yeah, I can make 2700 peak. It's great. Or a 2700 average bird out of my 16 pillar water. Yeah, that's great. What kind of radio you got? Because the radio is totally what dictates your average power. And it's the circuitry inside the radio and how it goes about pushing the AM into the carrier, which dictates your average, RMS, whatever you want to call it, your bird watts. Okay, so with everything turned to 11, we're going to leave that at 1 watt, turn to 11. This radio is making, survey says, looking at this peak meter, right at about 100 watts. And when we do that, we're dropping to 13.5, give or take. Well, I'm just curious, with good power wire hooked up to a very substantial connection, ding, what difference this will make in what it does. Now, so I don't look like a complete tool on video, I'm going to pick the radio up and look at it so I don't have a chance of plugging it in backwards, because that would be bad. Let's turn the radio back on. Now all we did is we unplugged the anemic, tiny, pathetic pubic wire that comes with the striker and hooked up an upgraded power cable. Hello, audio. 14 volts, or 15 volts now goes to 14.9 versus 13.5. Well, how does that affect our performance? Let's just slowly drink this in for a hot minute as a group. Have not touched a single knob on the front of this radio. Hello. No knobs have been touched. Everything's still cranked to 11. Mic gain still cranked to 11. Everything's at 11. Hello. 14.6. So we picked up another full volt internally on the radio. Let's bring this in. Hello. We picked up a full, God, I can't even understand that number. A full 45, or so we picked up another almost 10 full bird. And now I got to turn my multiplier on because we're burying this on the stop peg. Let me do this again. I'll show it to you again. Might be getting ahead of myself here. Hello. And not like lightly, just kind of, dang. It's like, whack, 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 whack. Hello. I say it's going to be about 130 watts. What do you guys think? Let's turn it up to 2x. So now that we're 2x, boys and girls, this little hash mark right here, between the 40 and the 60, that's 100 watts. Next big hash mark, 120, 140, 160, 180, 200. Okay, everybody got that? Good. Let's see where we lie. Hello. Holy smokes, jumping Jehoshaphat. Look at that. I got to redo that so I can do the math in my own head. It says 20, 40, 60. Hello. That's like 158 watts of peak power. Hello. Let's see. Let me make sure I'm doing that math right. Hello. That's like 150 out of a 955. Okay, so I'm going to back this out. Hello. Hello. Okay. Set the mic down. unplug from big power wire, go back to garbage power wire. Let's plug this back in. I don't want to be stupid and plug this in backwards. I was about ready to plug it in backwards. Okay, plug that in. Hello, 1, 2. Holy smokes, does that make a huge difference? Let's go on over here again. Hello. Wow. Wow. We're back at our 115 watts worth of power. Just by going from this shitty wire to this shitty wire. Because they're all shit, let's face it. I mean, if we could, we'd have solid copper bar going to the back of the radio. Hello. All about keeping that voltage up. Well, okay, points proven. Big power wire, like what's going up here to the workbench, 8 gauge. That's what you want. You can't do little tiny piss-ass wire when it comes to these things. If you can keep this voltmeter up, shit's gonna come alive for you. I mean, this meter says it all. Hello. Versus, plug this back in. Come on, give me the volt reading. Come on, give me the volt reading. Come on, give me up there. Hello. That 1.5 volts makes a huge, huge difference. Well, now I get to start into the 3-hour-long process of taking this thing off, which involves my 300 plus pound ass sitting right here on this workbench, working to my side, trying to balance this radio in my hand and this radio. I gotta take this bird meter out, and inevitably I knock a whole bunch of shit off of here. But once it's up there, it's never gonna move. I'm in love with a stripper. That's a dirty girl. As in far as like, she's got some big boobins. She's not afraid to jump up on a pole. Dirty. Spectrally, this thing is clean. As you guys are gonna see in many YouTube videos to come. D-rail, thank you. Zane at Big Rig Radio, thank you. There's such a shortage on strikers right now in the universe. I ended up buying a radio from Zane at Big Rig. He shipped it here, then I sent it to D-rail. Hence the reason he was kind enough to throw in one of these power wires, and I thought I'd give him a little bit of a plug. Yes, this is straight up silicone, high temp, high rub resistance wire, not, once again, cheap, shitty PVC low strand count garbage like this. The wires that are inside of here are just as fine as angel hair. So if you go to strip this to install it in something, do it outside your truck or do it in your shop away from your electronics equipment, because the little tiny wires, if you break some of them off, will float around on everything, and they have a tendency to work them way into situations and cause all kinds of shit to short out. Just saying, it's food for thought. Gentlemen, I gotta run. Yeah, before I take off, I want to say this. There are a lot of shortages taking place in the supply food chain. Not just for the end consumer as far as like being able to find parts. It's a hard shortage on wire. There's a hard shortage on aluminum, like heat sink, cabinet shortage, board shortage, hardware shortage, switching supply shortage. There's currently a ferrite shortage going on. I'm included in this. If you've got stuff on order from a builder right now, be patient, because if they didn't have the parts on the shelf when you decided to order the thing and they were planning on buying them, you might be looking at next year. I mean, I don't have anything the only thing I'm back ordered on right now is output transformers, but that's going to get remedied here in about a week. So you're not going to see any real delays coming out of me. But other builders, you might want to take a hot minute, because we're having a hard time getting a hold of good extruded heat sink. And I say we as in like the guys that supply us the cabinets. I don't know if they're behind on boards, but that's only a matter of time. The aluminum sheet to make the cabinets out of, that might be the next thing. But wire, switchers, meters, all that kind of stuff are getting really hard to get because the supply chain is a joke right now. So everybody be patient. Just be patient. We'll get through this thing together, I swear to God. Gentlemen, my name is BBI. I want to say thank you for tuning in, following along. More fun stuff to come. I cannot stress this enough. Do not go out and buy one of these unless you know exactly what you're doing, because this radio right here will flat rip the head right out of some of your equipment. Either it be the variable power here, too much mic gain here, too much peak, or too much bird, and you can end up destroying your radio equipment that's downline. So please, for the love of God, be smart. Go into everything wide open, eyes open, eyes wide open. All right, I gotta run. Love every single one of you guys. I appreciate you all for tuning in. We'll see you. Bye.